Who's that coming down the track? It's a mean machine in red and black. Ain't nothing finer in the land. Than a drunk, obnoxious Georgia man. Go, go! Go, go!
What's up, y'all? This is John and Caleb back for another episode of the Nothing Finer podcast. As always, you can find us on Millions and as part of the Fans First Sports Network. We are back after an unplanned hiatus. Taking a week or so off has honestly been something that's been on my mind for a couple of months.
And then it just happened.
Yeah, accidentally. Little chaos stew over the last couple of weeks behind the scenes here. So I know the last episode we recorded, I was talking about the big disc golf tournament that I had coming up. The Sunday of that tournament, it was approximately 50 degrees and raining with 20 to 30 mile an hour winds. So by the time I got home that afternoon, soaking wet and cold, by the time I went to bed, I did not have a voice, and it took about 7 days for me to get it back. During those 7 days, Mike moved, had a couple family medical things happen that slowed down his moving, and then you had a couple of things pop up, so it was just like, all right, we're taking a week, turning into 2 weeks. But we're back. I'm healthy. Mike's in his new house. As far as I know, we're good for Sunday.
Nice.
You seem to have all of your limbs, and
somehow, some way.
Yeah. So we're back.
Let's go. We are back. Officially.
Yes, officially. At least once a week. We're going to try to continue with twice a week. Next week, just going to go ahead and be honest, next week will be difficult. I'm out of town Tuesday through Thursday for work. So, hopefully, I am back in time to record on Thursday night, but that all depends on Atlanta traffic. So, if you guys will just stay home from work on Thursday and let me get from Norcross to Savannah in time to record, that would be great.
There we go.
But we're excited to be back. And we want to thank you guys for voting for us for Connect Savannah. We have not heard any news yet. I don't remember the timeline last year in which they told us any information. But as of right now, we don't know if we're kidnapping Kaleb or if you guys need to do better. We will let you know.
Probably need to do better, even if I do get kidnapped, just generally. But that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, let's just all do better. Specifically my vocal cords. And, I'll go ahead and jump into the how have you been, what are you drinking thing. Maker's Mark, all ranks, buy vets, for vets. Kind of cool thing. You can buy this Maker's Mark private release only on base. But, how have I been? It's been interesting. But I will say, on the negative side of things, I've come to the realization that my voice is still, I don't think I've gotten my voice back to 100% from the Georgia Tech game. I'm talking football game.
Yeah.
Because ever since then, every time I go to a hockey game, I lose my voice. It's gone for at least a day, maybe two. So once a week since Thanksgiving, I just don't have a voice for at least 24 hours. So yeah, if the last hockey game we have is April 13th. If towards the end of April I still am struggling with my voice, I will probably actually go to the doctor about it because
that's a long time to be to be dealing with that.
Yeah. But positive side of things, um, since the last time we recorded, put a gym in the garage at my house. Um, not not like a full on commercial gym, but enough for me to hit all the major muscle groups, and I love it so far. I have worked out every day since we put it in the house, but one,
Nice.
and that was today, and that was because you eventually need to take a rest day, but um, it's awesome. I love it, and I went to St. Augustine for the first time last weekend.
There we go.
How I have lived 3 hours from St. Augustine for 4 years and never been as a huge history nerd, I don't know. But I went on this big spiel about the history of Castillo de San Marcos while we were
Oh
there.
yeah, yeah.
Because, look, guys, if you're not a history nerd, go ahead and skip forward a few seconds here. But
Oh, a few minutes because I'm a talk too, but you go ahead.
so I mean, just the wild part about it. These people are living in Spain, like living the good life in Europe, and they're like, "Hey, dude, you're in the army. We need you to go to this place that no one's ever been before." All right, whatever. And then they get there, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, everyone here between the Europeans and the natives want to kill us, so you should build a fort."
Yeah.
All right, whatever. All right, so instead of a wood fort, we're gonna have you dig blocks out of this island 15 miles away, bring them back here, and build us a fort. Okay, that's
Okay.
that's fine, I guess. The fort never finished construction, but simultaneously was never conquered in warfare.
Hmm.
And the stones that this fort is built out of is essentially just gravitationally compressed seashells from hundreds of millions of years ago. They took chunks out of this island that's limestone of just crushed oyster shells over the last however many millions of years, and they built a fort out of it.
Hmm.
Apparently, it's one of the strongest fort versus artillery attacks built in this hemisphere. So you have like close to 1 billion-year-old oyster shells stopping cannonballs from the 1600s up until this fort was decommissioned by the United States military in the 1940s.
Wow.
Wild. Absolutely insane. It went from Spanish farmers protecting this fort to Native Americans living there to Native Americans being prisoners there during the American Indian War to World War One and World War Two. It was a radar station on the East Coast to protect from German U-boats. Just insane that an oyster from hundreds of millions of years ago got turned into this place.
Yeah. It is really wild, and we went. Gosh, it must have been 2021 because my daughter was still a very, very tiny child. That was where we got her. We collect the Junior Ranger badges,
Mm-hmm.
and that was where we got her first one. Was at Castillo de San Marcos, and we went there to the Basilica
Mm-hmm.
down there, which is, I believe, the first Christian church of any kind in the Americas.
Yeah, because St.
Um,
Augustine was the first real civilization, Western
yeah,
civilization in this hemisphere for lack of a better term.
right, right. So just, I mean, just an incredible place. If you have not been, we went to the Fountain of Youth, which was
Mm-hmm.
awesome, um, as
Turns out
well.
it's a
And
lie.
yeah, apparently. But yeah, there's just one guy sitting there, said he was born in 1480. I don't know, but yeah, it was. I mean, it's an incredible place. It feels like you're stepping out of time at times because they tried so hard to preserve the
Yeah,
as much of the appearance of like an old Spanish colony as they could, because a lot of the buildings really are that old. Um,
Yeah.
so
Like
it's
the oldest, so just a few blocks off of the Atlantic Intercoastal Waterway there, you have the oldest permanent residence in the United States. You have the oldest store in the United States, the oldest restaurant in the United States, the oldest bar in the United States, that
hmm
are all still the oldest coffee shop in the United States is still operating like 100 yards from the front door of the fort. Just
yeah, just
super
wild.
cool.
Yeah.
But the reason we went to St. Augustine, um, our friends that, I went to high school with and they moved down here and we moved down here and met up later in life. We met up with them and got to meet their daughter for the first time, who was born late last year. So that was super cool. Um, and got to take her to her first national park, which was also pretty awesome.
Mm.
Um, but as someone who is 5 months old, highly doubt she will remember any of that.
Probably not, but it's sometimes it's not about the kid's memory, it's about yours, and you want to enjoy doing stuff with a kid,
Yeah,
regardless if they can remember it or not. And then maybe later you can take them back and reminisce and have a whole thing.
yeah,
We just did that again. We took our daughter also to Colorado because we wanted to go for an anniversary when she was about that same age, and she doesn't remember anything about it, but we show her pictures and videos, and she thinks it's great. So
perfect.
don't be ashamed of that.
Yeah, this little girl, if she sees pictures of that, she will see a picture of me holding her in one arm on a rooftop bar with a drink in the other hand, because that is one of the like 5 pictures they got of me holding her that day.
Mm, nice.
Yeah, it was a beautiful day to be drinking a nice drink on a rooftop bar in the oldest city in America. You know?
Yeah, sometimes that's all you need.
How have you been?
Oh man, it has also just been a wild couple of weeks for me for a lot of different reasons. None really terrible, just mildly inconvenient to kind of fun, but I just, it's all coming together. Got to walk in our St. Patrick's Day parade on Monday because I took off work for it, which is fun.
In
Um,
Augusta, I'm assuming.
yes, in Augusta.
Okay.
Which I mean, it's always a big deal in Augusta. We got a billion Irish Catholics over here, so everybody's going crazy for St. Patrick's Day. It's a whole like 4 different festivals after the parade you can go to downtown. It's nuts. And then other than that, working had to work till 9:30 Tuesday night,
Mm.
which makes me really glad we do this on Thursdays and not Wednesdays. Um, so yeah, just a long, long few days, really long couple of weeks, but glad to be back in here with you.
Yeah. No, I think just based on where we're all at in our current lives, we, even if it wasn't necessary, I think we all kind of needed a little bit of time off.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't necessarily foresee a 2 week break happening again, at least for quite some time. Um, if I happen to, as the one who records and edits and posts the episodes and all that kind of thing, if I happen to go on a 2 week vacation, just assume that I have left the country and refused to pay taxes, because that is the only way I could afford to take 2 weeks off of work. So if
Fair.
this happens again, everybody pour one out for your boy, because he ain't never stepping foot in this country again. Um, yeah, just speaking of things that pour one out for, basketball. Um, so I don't know if I said this in the intro. This is our catch up episode. Lots happened over the last 2 weeks between basketball, baseball. What's happened since spring practice has started. We're starting with basketball. A lot to catch up on over the last 2 weeks. And
Yeah.
between when we wrote this outline and right now, we know how the first round went with the game against Gonzaga. Gonzaga, however you pronounce it, don't
Yeah.
really care.
Doesn't
Uh,
matter because I
nope.
hate them with a passion.
Catholic school, so
Yep.
that's saying a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
It sure is.
but so at this point, we know Georgia got their teeth kicked in, processed, and then handed back to them by Gonzaga. Gonzaga, however you want to say it.
Yeah. Could not seem to make a single basket while they seem to make all of them.
So that is one thing. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this game because at this point we all know how it went. But in the first half, I think they missed twice,
Oh,
like missed two baskets that they attempted. And I think they only hit the rim four times in the first half. Like
jeez.
they could not miss net in the first half. And honestly, I really believe that when a team is on to that degree,
There ain't nothing you can do.
no, no.
Not a single thing.
And I will say some of the fouls that were called in the first half were absolutely atrocious. I can
Yeah.
tell you, I quit watching in the first half when Santos Real went for a rebound and his elbow hit a Gonzaga player's shoulder, and they said, foul Georgia, they get two shots, and they made both.
Yeah.
That was the point where I was like, so Georgia players can get straight up mugged for the basketball,
Yep.
no call. Gonzaga players can get barely tapped and they get two. And I'm not saying the referees are the reason Georgia lost this game because that's absolutely not true.
Right.
Georgia sucked in the first half. Point blank period. It was the second half fairly even. Georgia trailed by 20 in the first half, lost the game by 21. That is a fairly even second half. The first half, I think I would rather have food poisoning than watch that first half again. That it was difficult. But for the most part, when we at the very beginning of this season, we said we wanted to see progress. I
Yeah.
think Caleb looked it up. We projected this team making March Madness, and if I'm
I
remembering right, first round we said we would be happy.
Yeah, we did. I remember you saying that making the tournament was the ceiling, and then I came on and clarified this team is making the NCAA tournament. It will do that. But that's about as far as the expectation goes. And considering, look, that's fine. First year under Mike White was not great. Second
It was
year,
terrible.
yeah.
Let's just clarify. It was bad. It was terrible.
Second year we make the NIT and go a long way in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you call progress. Third year, not only did we make the NCAA tournament, they had us ranked somewhere between 33 and 36 when you look at the seeding after briefly being ranked in the top 25 this year. So honestly, that's an exceeding of my expectation. I thought we'd make the tournament as like a 14 seed. Now, it ended up being kind of unfortunate because we got matched up against a very good 8 seed in
against
Gonzaga.
against one of the college basketball blue bloods, if we're being entirely honest. Like there are some 6 seeds I think Georgia beats in the first
Mm-hmm.
round. But
Probably.
you're talking about a Gonzaga team that is mad that they're this low seeded, that hasn't missed the tournament in as many years as I have been alive.
Yep.
And then not only that, they won their conference in their worst game of the year. That is the team you're playing in the first round.
Yeah.
And
So
even if Georgia wins this game, they're getting beat by 30 by Houston. Like,
yeah,
let's not pretend they're making a deep run.
yeah. This was a mercy killing 100% by Gonzaga. And as much as I would really like to, as much as I would really like to have it, I'm fine sitting on the sidelines and just watching the rest of this tournament from home without having a dog in the fight because Georgia made it, and that's all we need, guys.
And three
That's
weeks ago, we did not think we were making the tournament in any way, shape, or form.
No, we
I,
absolutely did not.
3 weeks ago, we were pretending basketball wasn't a sport.
Yep.
3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, they just lost like their sixth game in a row, and
Yeah.
we were sitting here thinking and saying it's going to take something miraculous for Georgia to get
Yeah.
in. We said it was going to take a deep SEC tournament run
Yeah.
for Georgia
Well,
to make
let's
the tournament.
well, let's talk about how this ended up playing out, right? And I think the schedule ended up really working out in Georgia's favor here in a crazy way at the end of the season. Because let's go back to February. They played 7 games in February. 6 of those games were against top 25 opponents,
I
and
think
four of those
five.
were four were
Yeah,
top 10. Yeah.
yeah.
So an insane stretch of a schedule. But then in the last game of that month, they had to take on number 3 Florida,
Hmm.
a team that Mike White had never beaten just 3 days after having to go to Auburn, who was ranked number 1 at the time and is the number 1 overall seed in the tournament now.
Yeah.
Uh, and Georgia beat him. Florida, not Auburn. But I care more about beating Florida.
Yeah,
It looked
that's
like it was
fair.
going to be another Mike White blown lead for a minute, and I mean he did blow the lead, but
Okay, yeah. Like, all right. So we appreciate Mike White bringing us out of the doldrums that we were in with Mark Fox and Tom Crean. But let's not
yeah, let's not
pretend
pretend he's going to win an NCAA tournament. But right now he doesn't have to.
no, because it
He
was what, a 20-point lead over Florida, and he won that game by two.
yeah, but he won the game too, and he got him there. So he may be, and don't take this as disrespect because I mean it as respect. I didn't put this in my notes. He might just be our basketball's Mark Richt, and I mean that with all due respect because
Yeah.
you look at what Mark Richt was. Mark Richt was not the guy who got us to the promised land. He was Moses, though. He got us to a place where Kirby Smart could take the ball and run with it and win that championship. Mike White
So
can be that guy.
and so here's a comparison that I thought of over the last 5 seconds or so. Um, coaches are like rolling the dice in a game of shoots and ladders. Are you
Yeah,
are you sliding back down or are you going up? Because in the game of shoots and ladders, sometimes you move forward one step, sometimes you get the ladder to win the
sometimes,
game.
yeah, and then sometimes you end up hitting spot number 84 and going all the way back down to 12
Yeah.
because
So
there's so you know
eh,
there's places where things
Mike
don't look so
White
good.
is a ladder for
Yes.
sure. For sure. Where that ladder ends up, we don't know. As of right now, we think it is not the end of the game, but it's a hell of a lot better than anywhere we've been pretty much since Dominique Wilkins.
Yeah, I was gonna say I remember 2008 sort of fluking our way to an SEC championship, being a 14 seed in the tournament. That was the basketball highlight of my life for Georgia.
Uh huh.
Like that was probably the most successful this team had been in my lifetime. I know
Yeah.
that I think there was a time, maybe before 2008. I wasn't into sports when I was 5, so that being the most successful thing, this team, just in terms of seeding number, has surpassed anything that I've seen in my lifetime.
Yeah.
So, and they did it by beating Florida. Then they beat Texas in Austin because we just do that in every sport now. Fine
Correct.
by me. And then they had to beat South Carolina in Columbia and Vanderbilt in Athens, which were both very losable games there at the end of the season.
Both of those, both Vanderbilt and South Carolina, are extremely scrappy teams in
Yeah.
basketball.
Yeah. And that the records were about even with ours.
Yeah.
So, so we're not talking about a team that's like low on the totem pole. This wasn't LSU.
Before the run Georgia went on over the last 2.5 weeks of the season, they were projected to be the 14th or 15th seed in the SEC tournament.
Yeah. And, well, they ended up being the 11th seed in the tournament and a 9 seed in the actual NCAA tournament. Did they lose to an Oklahoma team they probably should have beat in the SEC tournament? Sure. But, it didn't matter.
Yeah, they had mailed it in by the time they played in the SEC tournament.
Yeah. But, before that point, Silas DeMary was looking like he was a son of... Can I say that? Who cares?
Wait, I don't know what you're planning on saying to tell you whether or not you can say it.
Oh, I've seen a lot of puns about Silas DeMary, which last name translates to of Mary, and there's a certain person who came from Mary that people have been
Okay.
jokingly and comparing him to.
Yes, I get it now, but also it's pronounced Demery.
Yeah.
Which
It is, but that's less funny. I can't make a joke out of that, so I just went with DeMary.
I appreciate it because one of my middle names is Emery. So.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah, that's true. But anyway, all that to say, Mike White has exceeded our expectation this season simply by getting to the tournament. I am glad that I changed my bracket so that I had Georgia winning the whole thing at first with a rematch against St. John's in the final. Glad I changed that. I still had them beating Gonzaga, but once Houston beats Gonzaga, my bracket will be right back in good shape. The goal was getting there, so I hope there's nobody who's listening to this who's upset and angry that Georgia lost this game. You could be angry at the way Georgia lost today because they did not bring their best. But let's think about how much this team's accomplished this season because it is quite a lot for this basketball team. We should expect better, but we won't. So, I mean, not right now. Like we should accept what we've got.
Yeah, no, while we are disappointed a few hours after the game has ended, before the season started, this is where we said specifically, I said this is the ceiling of this team.
Yep.
So,
mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. Like, were we sad when Georgia didn't score a point 6 minutes into the game? Yes.
Yeah.
Were
we sad that two starters had scored points by halftime?
Would I have much rather Georgia done what they had done all season and get up to a 14-point lead at halftime and squander it? Absolutely. But
I don't know that I would have. It's kind of nice just to have the game over, but continue.
But today was, went and hung out with some friends, played disc golf. And before the game was over, I was there and I was like, honestly, just for Georgia to be dancing with the history of this program, all we have asked of Mike White is progress. That's it. First year, they sucked. They were trying to get out of the Tom Crean era of where offensive rebounding was a sin. And then last year, they win some games in the NIT. This year, they make it to the dance. And one thing that told me how big the change between Tom Crean and Mike White is? Today, the broadcast with Basketball Beth Mounds, she specifically talked about the team's offensive rebounding numbers. And that's the point where I knew we were moving in the right direction.
Because that was the number one frustration in the Tom Crean era, for sure.
Specifically, because when I played basketball, I cannot shoot. I was the less athletic white version of Dennis Rodman. Like, you want me to score points? Won't do it. You want me to beat somebody up, block some shots, and get rebounds? I'm in. Like, I can
Yeah.
get a triple double with 0 points.
Yeah.
So I'm good. I am good. But man, it hurt my soul to watch the Tom Crean era of no defense and no rebounding.
Yeah.
And
That was the frustrating thing. It felt like we were letting our opponents rebound literally every ball that came.
uncontested.
Yeah.
Like,
Just don't worry about jumping up and trying to get the ball. We'll figure it out.
yeah, in the Ant-Man era, it was throw up a three, turn around and run the other direction,
Yep.
regardless of what
Because
happens.
it's either it's going in and going to the other team, or it's not going in and still going to the other team.
Yeah. So I know today, a lot of y'all are watching this on the 21st, listening to this on the 21st. I know it sucks for Georgia to have made it as the 9 seed and not go any further. But it's nice to have made it as a 9 seed. Like he
Yeah, absolutely it is.
shoots and ladders, and we have laddered our way to a stepping stone to figure out what we're doing from here.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to get out of the doldrums to even see the daylight to figure out where you're going.
Well said. Well said. Well, we will get there one of these days where we want
Yeah,
to be. If
eventually.
Alabama can do it, so can we.
Yep. Baseball, something that everyone's excited about as of right this moment. And the Diamond Dogs have been on a tear over the last few weeks, finally taking their second loss of the season to Kentucky. And I know as of today, Kentucky is currently unranked. But if y'all remember back over the last couple of years, Kentucky hosted regionals and super regionals over the last couple of years. This is a good program.
Mm-hmm.
If y'all remember a few years ago, Easter weekend 2023, Georgia's best win of the season was beating Kentucky in Lexington in baseball. I specifically remember that because I was at Mike's house and it was Easter weekend.
Yep.
But best win of the season by far. So getting into a couple of players just because, a lot of people don't watch the baseball games. We're talking about Ryan Zabrowski. If you have listened to me attempt to pronounce a Big Ten name over the last few years, that's as good as it gets.
Yeah.
So we're rolling with it. And then Robbie Burnett are leading the way in batting average with a 444 and 414 respectively, and both of them in home runs with 12 and 11 respectively. As a team, Georgia second in the country in team home runs. Last time I checked, they were 1 or 2 behind Tennessee. And, Tennessee lost in extra innings the other day. We'll get to that in a minute. But sophomore Trey Phelps, a guy that I hyped up a ton last year, missed about half the season last year due to injury. And up until the game that I went to a few weeks ago, his batting average was right around 100 after the first week of the season. He's currently at a 318 average, 996 OPS. If you're not familiar with baseball terms, it's on base plus slugging percentage. So really, you're looking for anything over a 750 in Major League Baseball. For his to be close to 1,000 is very, very good. Trey's got 12 walks and is just a clutch overall hitter versus home run or bust guy like he was in his freshman season, which is very nice. He's able to kind of place the ball in the gaps where he needs to, especially late in games. He's helped quite a bit. But the Diamond Dogs do start a series in Gainesville tomorrow for us, today for you guys if you're listening on the 21st. Starts on Friday. And this is the week after Tennessee swept Florida and then lost a midweek game to East Tennessee State, who, by the way, Georgia beat in a midweek on March 11th.
Boom.
Just going to
We
throw
got
that out there.
Yep, transitive win over Tennessee.
Transitive win over Tennessee, who...
Imagine losing a midweek game to one of these teams. Just imagine losing to East Tennessee State.
Can't.
Couldn't be us.
It literally can't, because Georgia beat them 9 days ago, as of this recording. And so it was a close win. To be fair, it was an 8-6 win. But with the way that
That's
East Tennessee,
like, you know, Appalachian State's win over Michigan in 2007 was close too.
All right, so a better comparison if we're talking about football, and I don't know how true this is. I have not watched any East Tennessee State conference games. This seems a lot like this past year's Boise State team of keeping it close against some of the power programs, beating one of them, and then, just holding on, playing their best games. And if East Tennessee's current stats and records stay pat, they're making a regional. Like it's not like this East Tennessee team is not good. Like, they're a very good team. But the problem with the level of athletic department they have is they're funded by playing these other programs.
Right. Well, occasionally you get a win over them, so good job. Thanks for likely knocking Tennessee off the #1 spot. I always love it when that happens.
Yes. So we're going to get into the rankings a little bit, just because it's kind of been wild so far this year. The Georgia team has moved up to 4th in the country, and Texas A&M, who, if you go back to our episode with Chris Phillips, Texas A&M, #1 team in the country, he said that was the safe pick to win the SEC.
What happened?
Texas A&M is the first team in the college football or college baseball rankings era to go from preseason #1 to unranked before the end of March. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say anything negative about Chris Phillips. I think he has forgotten more about college baseball than I'll ever know.
Of course.
As someone who quite literally played college baseball, and including some regionals and stuff like that. But Texas A&M obviously is in a bad spot. Their team left in the middle of the postseason last year, or their coach left in the middle of the postseason last year to coach for their arch rival of Texas.
Yeah.
And
you thought they were just going to show up and be the top team?
Yeah, and they have some talented players, but we've seen what Georgia has done with talented players in no direction, except for the 2020 Georgia team that, if we're being entirely honest, was going to win the College World Series that year. If you're not familiar with the 2020 Georgia staff, 3 pitchers and 3 hitters are currently starters on Major League Baseball teams from the 2020 Georgia team. And
that team would have won the World Series.
They were ranked, depending on which service you were looking at, #1 or #2, on quite literally on their way to Gainesville to play #1 or #2, depending on the service you looked at, Florida, and were heavily favored in all 3 games of that series.
And then the world shut down.
So we can actually thank Wuhan for Georgia not having a College World Series title in this century.
They are as much to blame as Fresno State.
Yep. I will choose to blame Wuhan more than Fresno State.
Yeah. Speaking of 2008, 2008 was the year of should've, would've, could've for Georgia athletics, but we can talk about that another time.
Yep, I will let you do the research on that.
Yeah. Okay. We'll make it a thing.
But yeah, so we got Texas A&M going from number one preseason to unranked before the end of March for the first time in the history of college baseball rankings. And then, over the last week, Tennessee swept Florida and went from number two, jumping LSU to number one. Then they lose to East Tennessee State in a midweek game. New rankings have not come out yet
Yeah.
for baseball season, but we will just assume LSU is jumping back up to number one.
Yeah. I would think so.
But LSU, they lost an early season game to Omaha. Not in Omaha, as in College World Series.
Just to Omaha.
Just to Omaha.
Which I think they'll come up later in my notes too.
Correct. Yeah. So then we have Arkansas at number 3, who lost to Kansas State and a ranked Ole Miss team.
Speaking of teams that lost to Omaha.
Yeah, so here's where we go as far as, can someone tell me if Kansas State is good? Because they've lost. Kansas State, I want to say, is like 17-3, 17-4, something like that. They've
lost 4 games.
Two terrible teams, and then beaten ranked teams in their next game. I'm very confused.
Yeah, they are
like Kansas State football.
That's true. They are undefeated at home this year. And according to the schedule that's on their website, they're 6-2 in neutral site games. That isn't true because they've lost. They've actually lost 5 games because they lost to Washington, Coastal Carolina twice, LSU, and Creighton on neutral sites.
Okay, the 2 losses to Coastal Carolina came while it was at a regional tournament. They were at Coastal Carolina Stadium in Conway, South Carolina.
Oh, were they?
So
okay,
that
that's
may
where
be the discrepancy, because it was at a neutral site tournament situation on Coastal's field.
Okay, that might be, but that explains 2 of the missing losses. There's another one that they haven't.
I don't have an explanation for that. I did my best.
Yeah, but who am I to question stats that I can clearly see are wrong? So at the end of the day, as UNC Wilmington showed us, no disrespect to them, but anyone
UNC
can win.
Wilmington is
They're a good
regular regional team.
Yeah, I understand. But the point I'm trying to make is anybody can win any game at any time in baseball. It's a little bit of a fluky sport. So I don't necessarily put any stock in individual games when I decide how good a team is, unless it makes Georgia look good. Then I tend to look at series, because those are a little bit more, are a little bit less prone to just fluke stuff happening. So like Kentucky, very good team again. They beat Georgia once in a 3-game series. Georgia is just better than they are. That's how I look at that.
Yeah,
so,
including the game that Georgia won with a Big Ten football score of 17-10.
Exactly. So that's an Iowa classic right there. So all that to say, if Kansas State had played a full 3-game series against Arkansas, we might not be looking at them the same way. But because it was just kind of a one-off game and they got the win, that's what's making. We would not
be looking at Kansas State or Arkansas the same way.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I was asking a question.
Oh, sorry, Kansas State specifically. If Arkansas wins the series 2-1, whereas if Kansas State wins the series 2-1, then it's a very different conversation. And we're like, well, what the heck goes on when they play these smaller teams?
Yeah, to be clear, based on what I have seen and based on what I have looked at, read, heard, Arkansas is still an elite program based on 3 of their 4 starters, pitchers wise at least.
Yeah.
Chris Phillips has said it, and we've said it as well. Arkansas, if they do anything well, baseball wise, they are going to have pitchers. And when you just happen to run into one of their good guys on a bad day or one of their bad guys on a midday, you can win that game. It's the same reason that Arkansas is, for the last couple of years, has been around 10 as far as hosting a regional, is that they're a singularly faceted team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as far as this season goes for Georgia, baseball wise, they have three starting pitchers who will shut you down. And 7 out of their 9 hitters will smoke the baseball. And that is 7 of 9 of any combination of guys you put up to bat.
Yep.
So whether it is a starter, a pinch hitter, a backup guy, it doesn't matter. This is an elite offense and 75% of an elite pitching staff, which is why they are ranked fourth in the country.
Yep. Very true. It is worth noting, getting back to the games this weekend, Georgia did take a bit of a break in the midweek this week.
Yes,
While
intentionally
Florida,
so.
yeah, that's true. Just like we do in football before Florida. Florida did have a couple of tune-up games though. That makes me nervous because we know from how the Braves play after a break, it's not necessarily a good thing in baseball. And we know from the playoff, it's not necessarily a good thing in football either. But hopefully they use the time wisely and use the rest well as well. So hopefully
So
everything's all right. But anytime there's a more of a break than another these days, I get a little nervous.
I will say this is something that I talked about a couple weeks ago on the show is Georgia intentionally front loaded their baseball schedule with a couple of 2 midweek games over the first month or so of the season so that they could take breaks. And the big reason is in college baseball, you have 4 starting pitchers. If you can take your guy that starts on Tuesday or Wednesday and throw him into a bullpen role on Friday or Saturday, you have a significantly better chance of winning 2 out of those 3 games. And like I said, Wes Johnson and the Georgia baseball team intentionally did that so they had some midweek breaks to have that better pitching staff into some of these SEC games. Um, I like it. I personally like it quite a bit. I think that there's a significant difference between college and Major League Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's specifically a significant difference between the Phillies pitching staff and anyone in college's pitching staff.
Very true.
Um, I just want to say fuck the Phillies, and
Yep.
that's fuck with a PH. And so it is. We're all
Yeah.
kosher. No
Yep.
FCC violations. That is
Yep.
PHUCK. The Phillies.
For the
Um,
record, the
yeah,
Philadelphia Eagles are the only Philadelphia team I'm okay with.
yeah. No. So, and this specifically for former co-host of mine, Wes. Bryce Harper can go eat all, all, every single banana on the planet.
Yep. And
If
so can the entire Chicago Cubs roster.
Whoa, okay. I don't have a problem with the Cubs
Uh,
primarily because they just suck overall.
that's
Sorry,
true.
Connor.
I just
Um,
figured while we were triggering Wes.
no. Bryce Harper specifically,
Yeah, fair.
as a guy who chose to get ejected from a playoff game that his team was losing in an elimination game because he felt like the calls were specifically going against him. He's selfish. He's the same
Yep.
age I am. He chooses to be selfish. He's a terrible
Yep.
person and a phenomenal baseball player.
Those two things can both be true.
Yes, I would
But the
rather be a good person and a bad baseball player. I might be more poor because I'm a good person and a bad baseball player, but I prefer it that way.
yep,
I go to sleep well at night.
knowing that I'm a decent person who's not good at baseball. I was never good at baseball, but
No, I wasn't either.
even
On it,
even even t-ball level, I was terrible.
honestly, if I would have kept growing, height wise, it's a phenomenal defensive lineman. I just kind of quit in seventh grade. I got I got this tall. I was bigger than everybody, and then everybody got taller than me. And I was like, all right, well, here we go.
Yeah, that's just how it goes sometimes.
Yep. All right, you ready to get to football?
Yeah, let's talk about this.
All right, so this is kind of just interesting. Kirby's been on one this week, and he's done this every spring. It seems
Hmm.
like, but this public dressing down of the team seems to be a little bit different than normal because he's calling out specific position groups, specific classes. So we're just going to go through what Kirby has specifically called out. And then we're going to go to players that have called themselves out.
Hmm.
All right, so Kirby. He's called out the freshmen for being out of shape, even though all the freshmen that are here in spring practice have been conditioning with the team since January. That part, if I'm being honest, sounds like the team's fault.
Yeah.
Just saying. He is mad at the freshmen for taking reps off in practice because they're out of shape. Once again, sounds like the team's fault.
Yeah.
The entire team for conditioning. He said that
This
they
was a
cannot.
big one.
Yeah, he said they cannot fully practice because no one is in shape. Everyone on the team has been conditioning with the team since January
Yep.
at a minimum.
Yep.
Once again, sounds like the coach's fault. Maybe
Yeah.
not Kirby specifically, but
But
strength and
strength condition.
conditioning,
That matters a lot.
it
Although
does.
there is one thing. Oh well, you continue the list. You go ahead and keep on going.
Kirby called out the offensive line for not playing like men. He said they're playing like children. We saw that last year in at least three of the five positions.
Yep.
And can confirm the offensive line playing like children results to you losing in Notre Dame like you should not have.
Yep. Giving Gunnar Stockton precisely nothing to work with in his
And
first
zero
start.
time to try to figure something out.
Yep.
Kirby also mad at the safeties for not playing well and no leader stepping up.
Yep.
Kirby also mad at Ryan Puglisi specifically for not knowing the offense well enough.
Yeah. And what's crazy too is one thing you left out is he called out no one specifically, but just pointed out a lot of kids not wanting to be coached, getting offended and
That's
putting their hands up when they got coached.
so I went through this list in my head so many times today and could not remember what I was missing. And I'm so glad you called me out on that. I because up until you said it, I'm sitting here going through it in my head. I'm missing something. What am I missing?
That was it. Yeah, yeah. He was very unhappy. He talked about that for a good 2 minutes.
And and as adults that deal with high school age children, and college age children, they're all mentally weak. Like I don't want to sound like an asshole because I don't have kids, let alone kids of that age.
Mm-hmm.
But I have nieces and nephews who are 18 and 19 years old, and I know kids, I see kids that are that age we've babied them. We
Yeah.
have. Like they can't be told they're wrong without 3 or 4 therapy sessions to figure out that it's okay to be wrong.
Right.
And as someone who doesn't have kids, I don't want to say that I would parent differently, but I was parented very
Yeah.
differently. Like
I will.
if I messed up, it was, hey dumbass, are you going to do it the same way?
Right. That's definitely not how I'm planning on parenting, and how we have not. I don't call my 4-year-old, 3-year-old daughter a dumbass, but like we don't
All
just
right, so
sit here
that's
and
very differently than how I was brought up.
yeah, but still, we don't just let her, if she does something dumb, we don't just let her keep doing something dumb, We
Right, you're
make
not
sure
gonna
she understands she's done something wrong, and make sure she has some understanding of how she needs to correct that.
you're not gonna let your kid put their right shoe on their left foot for
Yeah.
years, and then when you say they're wrong, cry about it.
Yep. And anybody, like, again, not to sound like a boomer, but what are these parents doing with these kids where they feel like they can come in here and just run the place and not have to adjust or change? Like, if your coach is telling you that he wants you, if your coach is telling you that he wants you to change, you should take the advice and be glad that you have a coach that cares enough.
Yeah, and all right, so I will fully sound like a boomer here, and I feel like a lot of people listening to the show will agree with me. If you are a high school kid today, you know who Kirby Smart is. You know how Kirby Smart coaches. You have seen his players that have gone on to be successful in the NFL, specifically linebackers. And I don't know if he's complaining about linebackers in this sense, but linebackers is the thing that Georgia has done best since Kirby took over.
Yeah.
So they're the city on a hill, right? If you want to go back to the history lesson we were teaching earlier, they're the city on a hill. They're the shining city on the hill. The linebackers are for the University of Georgia.
Yeah.
The first national title Georgia had since 1981. What happened before one of the biggest plays of the game? N'Kobe Dean grabbed one of his fellow inside linebackers by the face mask, ripped him a new asshole, and told him to get his shit together. Then Alabama was stopped on 3rd and long on the goal line, had to go for the field goal instead of the touchdown. Georgia takes over that game and wins, right?
Yep.
So I say that to say you don't, as a high school kid, you don't get recruited by the University of Georgia and commit to the University of Georgia thinking that you're going to get sunshine and rainbows at practice. So, and that's why Kirby has emphatically said and shown, if you're coming to the University of Georgia for that NIL paycheck, don't.
Yep.
If you want to show up to get better every day, if you want to show up to compete every day, if you want to show up to fight for a national championship every day, and if you want to show up to get paid in the NFL every day, show up.
Yep. Really
But
show
if
up.
that's not what you're after, Knoxville's nice this time of year.
Yep.
And I just, man, it drives me insane every year to see all these. And then once again, I'm going full boomer here, man. Like I deal with kids because I go into these places, whether it's apartments or retail spaces or whatever, to do my job. I see these kids that are mentally weak as hell, and it drives me insane.
As it
Like
should.
like I'll see a kid, fire sprinkler inspections, right?
Hmm.
That's what I do for my day job. I walk an average of 12 to 15,000 steps a day. I walk. My job, if you could put it in a description in Indeed, is going to be you walk a lot, you know what to do when sprinkler systems are broken. That's it. If you broke it
Yep.
down into two bullet points,
That's the ones.
you walk a lot, you know how to troubleshoot water-based fire protection systems. I go to all these student apartments with 19, 20-year-old kids that are like head of maintenance because they've been there since they were 17. And they're like, "Oh man, you're going to have me walking?"
Uh,
Yeah. Like,
yeah,
we're going to be walking from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's all we're doing today. We're walking.
and
And
you're just gonna have to deal with that.
these kids can't handle it.
Goodness.
Like I get off early more often than not because these 20-year-olds can't walk the amount that I can.
Golly.
Not because they're physically incapable of it, because they're mentally weak. And once again, I know I'm sounding like a boomer here. I get it. If you're a college kid that's upset that I said you can't walk 20,000 steps in a day, come to work with me. Please.
Yep. Yep.
Please. Like I would love for you to prove me wrong. But in the meantime, you've proven me right. You've proven that you can't push past that mental limit that takes you to the point of where you surprise yourself. And that's why, big picture, that's why all of the skilled trade positions are going unfilled by young kids. That's
Mhm.
why every college football coach and every college basketball coach and every college baseball coach across the country is pissed off with the roster they have.
Yeah.
It's because you've been told you're great your entire life. Meanwhile, you might be good, but you're not
Yeah.
willing to put in the work to be great.
Exactly. This whole like, and again, I've got no problem with a healthy self-esteem in somebody.
For sure.
But and this started with our generation. Our schools were trying to bump up our self-esteem and do that, which again, fine. But self-esteem without humility just jumps into pride, and a lot of these young kids don't deserve to have the pride that they have.
I will say, shout out to my fourth grade teacher for he was a bench player on the University of Florida's basketball team. And this long, long circle to get back to where we're at. My fourth grade teacher, he was a bench player on the University of Florida's basketball team, right? So like he had a scholarship. He never played much. He never went pro. He never went G League. He never went European. But he was on a mid 2000s University of Florida basketball team, right?
Yeah.
So he knew everything about drive, about fight, about perseverance, about everything. To barely see the court, he fought his ass off to get the like 5 minutes a game he got, right?
Yeah.
I will never forget what he told us before fourth grade field day because of the shit he went through in college. And in fourth grade field day, this is not a sick brag that I'm not trying to low key anything. Our class as a whole, we came in first place for everything except one event, and our school gave out medals for each event, and we got first, we got first, we got first, we got first, we got fourth in one event. I don't even remember what the event was. My teacher came around and took all of our medals for fourth place and said, "You don't deserve this," and threw them in the trash.
Mm.
And And that was, to me, that was the defining separation between the generation before me and the generation after me. Is
Yeah.
that I like it? There were some parents that were pissed our teacher took our fourth place medals away, and there were some parents who were like, "What do you mean they gave medals for fourth place?"
Right. Why would you give a medal for fourth place?
And because of that teacher, that like that is how I see everything. Like
Mm-hmm.
first place, second place, sometimes third place, depending on how many contestants you have. But after that, you suck.
Yeah.
Do better.
Exactly.
So like I don't want to say I agree with Kirby on the team sucks because obviously they don't.
No.
But
But you don't want in spring practice, first of all, even if this team was amazing right now, you don't want to be satisfied with it in spring practice.
complacency is the enemy of excellence.
Facts.
All right. I feel like we went on way too long of a tangent there. And 99% of that is my fault. So um, we'll we'll skip through to the next one. Oscar Delp called himself out. If you haven't seen this, he said that in the 2024 season he had 1 foot out of the door, and that will not happen this year. Caleb, what does that tell you?
That tells me, and I know, spoiler alert, I did read your notes on it. If he had 1 foot out the door, but now he's back, what is something that was on the team last year that he may not have wanted to be around for that's no longer there?
I, just based on what people have said about different players and different personalities, I can't say it's Trevor Etienne, who I have not heard a bad thing about.
No, can't say that.
Can't say it's Arian Smith, who obviously there's no bad thing to say about because if you've been on the team that long and have bad character, Kirby makes sure you're not on the team that long.
Yeah. And
Can't
it's
say
and
it's
and it's not like Arian Smith was stealing a bunch of big time reps from Oscar Delp, so that's not part of it either.
right, right. So it's I can't say it's Dominic Smith, who
No.
Kirby requested to come into the program. I, you know, we're talking about Oscar Delp going from making Brock Bowers type catches to being non-existent in the stat sheet. I I'd have to say that would be Carson Beck, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think that's what we're left with.
Rationality says Carson Beck.
Hmm.
Speculation from us and a lot of other sources say that no one liked Carson Beck. Safe to say that, especially considering his long-term girlfriend left him shortly after he got to Miami, and just based on the way that the team has responded to since he was no longer the starting quarterback, since he left the program, it seems like most of the team in Athens did not like Carson Beck.
Yeah, that seems very clear.
This is one of those situations of Dylan Raiola, if you will, of we have no confirmation that people didn't like Dylan Raiola, but
But if he's
there's
not there,
there's guys like KJ Bolden who had no interest in the University of Georgia when Dylan Raiola was committed, and then he said, "Nah, I'm gonna go to Nebraska." And then KJ flips to Georgia, plays 35% of the season as starting safety, and is now the leader in the clubhouse. And he's like, "I'm a dog till I die." That makes
yeah,
you ask questions.
Yeah, that seems to indicate certain things.
It definitely does. Another thing that makes me ask a ton of questions: Nate Frazier, even though he is the youngest of the returning running backs, has publicly said that he knows he needs to be a leader for the running back room going into 2025.
I'll tell you what, that right there, plus Oscar Delp saying the things that he has said in a similar vein, all that does is just ramp up my respect for those guys to 11. I mean,
So I agree. As far as the tight end room goes, Jaden Rydell and all the other guys. I mean, at this point, if you've listened to the Saturday Down South podcast, you know Adam Brenneman, big, like he is, as far as the college football media goes, for tight end analysts, he is the guy. The problem is he is also a big fan of James Franklin, which means you can immediately disrespect everything he
yeah,
says.
that's true.
He also says that Drew Aller is one of the best returning quarterbacks in the country, which means you can immediately disrespect everything he says.
Yep.
If you want to talk about tight end university over the last 5 years, you've Georgia, right? First and foremost,
Yeah.
University of Georgia. Now, if you want to talk about a guy that could have gone pro this year, chose to come back because he said he had his one foot out of the door last season and thinks he can do better this year, Oscar Delp, first and foremost. I don't care about Iowa. I don't care about Penn State. I don't care about anybody else. I don't care about stats. I don't care about records. Give me the team that took Brock Bowers from a 4-star that was running Napa Valley Vineyard Hills to the best tight end in college football history. Give me the guy that backed him up.
Yeah.
Give me the guy that replaced him. 10 times out of 10, I don't care about Tyler Warren. I don't care about Adam Brenneman. I don't care about anybody else. You give me the only 2-time Mackey Award winner in college football history and his backup over anybody else, right?
Yeah.
And Nate Frazier, we talked about it quite a bit last year, especially after the Clemson game. Nate Frazier is the closest body type, running type, physical type, anything you can get to Nick Chubb's freshman season since Nick Chubb's freshman season.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a guy that can hit 2 inside linebackers shoulder to shoulder, bounce off and go another 15 yards? Nate Frazier. You want to talk about somebody that can outrun the entire defensive line, make one cut, and go to the end zone? We're talking about Nate Frazier.
Yeah.
So as much as I love Branson Robinson and Roger Robinson and all these other guys, up until the point that Nate gets hurt, my confidence is in Nate. Because we're talking about that game against Georgia Tech. We're talking about that game against Texas. While both games against Texas, Trevor had the scoring plays. Who got Trevor to the goal line? It was Nate.
Yeah.
Who scored multiple times against Georgia Tech and 8 overtimes? It was Nate. So if Nate says, we need a leader in this room, I am the leader in this room, all right, big dog, you're the leader in the room.
Yeah, you can have it. You've earned that.
Yep, it's on you. If you can't do it, I think Roderick or Branson can.
Yeah,
but if you put that weight on your own shoulders, you got it.
Yeah, there is a chance that Roderick and Branson, with their demeanor in the locker room and the way they carry themselves, have earned that right to lead that part of the locker room. Nate Frazier has earned it on the field in spades. No disrespect to the other guys, a lot of the stuff was out of their control,
Yeah, for
but
sure.
Nate Frazier has 100% earned that right.
And I don't want anybody to take anything that either of us have said about Branson or Roderick negatively towards them,
No.
because 9 times out of 10 you cannot affect what injuries come your way. But Nate took a lot of the same hits and came out of the season still carrying the football.
Yep.
And as far as the running back room goes, a lot of it is personality based. Go back to 2017, the best running back room that Georgia has had, I think, period, if we're being entirely honest. You
Yeah.
know, you had in 2017, you had 4 1,000-yard rushers in that room between Nick and Sony and Elijah Holyfield and DeAndre Swift. You had 4 1,000-yard rushers. So that 2017 room, I think, is the best we've ever had.
Yeah. Taking the
Arguably the
whole room
best.
into account. Yeah.
If you're talking about the entire room, possibly one of the best the sport of football has ever known.
Yep. All of these guys were starters in the NFL. Every single one of them.
There
A
was
couple of
one
them were
leader.
very good.
There was one leader in that room. There's one leader in that room, and it wasn't the best guy, because if we're being honest, in college, Sony was the best guy.
Yeah.
It was the guy that put his head down, shut up, and worked every day.
Yeah.
And then going into the next year, between DeAndre and Elijah, you could argue Elijah was that guy. He wasn't the loudest, he wasn't the best. He was the guy that put his head down and worked every day.
Yeah.
So for the University of Georgia, tight end or running back room, I don't care if you're the loudest. I don't care if you're the best. I care if you come in, put your head down and work every day. I care if Kirby sees your effort at practice and puts you in when it matters.
Yep.
And that, I feel like, at the University of Georgia, when it comes to the starting running back, it doesn't matter who gets the first carry of the game, gets the first carry of the season. It matters. It's a one possession game late in the fourth quarter. Who's getting that carry towards the goal line?
That's exactly right. That is the starting running back.
That's
No matter
the
who
starter.
plays the first snap of the game.
And last year, it was 50-50 between Trevor and Nate.
Yeah.
And if you're telling me Nate's coming back and the other two guys are coming off injuries, Nate's got it.
Yeah.
So, I'm really happy to see that Nate is choosing and saying that he is going to be the leader in that room. All right, I'm not happy about this. The amount of wide receivers that are not in spring practice. Obviously, we know that Nitro Tuggle is indefinitely suspended from the team. This is the day after that has come out.
Yep.
From what I have seen, as of March 20th at 10 p.m.
I'll just throw on allegedly. Yeah.
Right, all the allegedlys, all of the question marks. From what I have seen at this point, Nitro Tuggle was going 16 miles an hour over the speed limit as someone who was not over the age of 21. Which is why he got arrested, because a super speeder under the age of 21 requires an arrest. It also is the reason that he got a $26 bail.
Yeah. So let's it's stupid, but let's also not pretend this is like a drunk driving going 100 in a school zone case, like a lot of people are trying to make it out as.
Correct. But at the same time, because we don't know the entirety of the situation, Kirby has already indefinitely suspended him and the offensive lineman in the car with him.
Yep.
So it's entirely possible something else happened, something else went on. There were some other extenuating circumstances with that.
Yeah, that is always entirely possible.
But I can tell you, I was put in a very similar situation to what Nitro Tuggle was put in when I was 19 years old, because I had bald ass street tires on my 98 Mustang leaving Dahlonega for spring break, and the person in front of me slammed on their brakes when they didn't need to. If you know anything about Mustangs, they already don't have traction. Straight up slid into this lady in front of me, and I got a super speeder ticket when there's no cop around.
Yep.
To detect the speed I was going. And it was just because I had a car that didn't get very much traction and I had bald ass street tires because I was an 18-year-old college kid that couldn't afford new tires. So, not to say that he did nothing wrong, not to say that he didn't do anything wrong,
Yep.
but I have been in a very similar situation where instead of paying a few $100s for tires, I had to pay like $1,500 in court fees because I couldn't afford new tires. Been there, done that.
Yep. Yep.
Hate the city
Stuff like
of
this
Gainesville
happens.
for it. Gainesville,
Yeah,
Georgia, not Florida.
Right. So, and I know like there's a lot of places in Georgia where if you have like a license plate that's in a different county than where you're driving, you might get a little target. So again, a lot of reasons to just not immediately jump on Nitro and act like he's a horrible person. We just don't know what's going on. And Kirby's got to indefinitely suspend him because of the whole reputation. So, but again, we don't really know a whole lot at this point, and we probably won't because this is just a private thing of Nitro's, and it'll be dealt with there, and we'll move on.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you know, I don't have anything negative to say about Nitro. As far as his situation goes, I've had some, you know, I just talked about the unpleasant run-ins I've had with the police. As far as traffic stops go, if you're not drinking, you know, I don't want to say you get a pass,
Mm-hmm.
but like, I get it.
Yeah.
I do. But I think that's gonna do it for this episode of the Nothing Minor podcast. We're already at like an hour and a half almost.
Yeah, might as well cut it here.
Yep, I am struggling to breathe already with my sinuses, so we're gonna cut it. But you know, follow us on social media. I was gonna say vote for us on Connect Savannah's Best of Savannah, but you already have, hopefully, or you suck. But follow us on social media. Go to the YouTube, look around the edge of the frame, you see us. But as always, remember, guys, there's nothing finer in the land
Than a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan.